about 1 o'clock in the morning yesterday, the fire made a significant run on the northwestern flank, and it ran towards Highway 101 at about 1 in the morning. It might have been maybe midnight, but about a 3 to 4 mile fire front hit Highway 101 about the same time in the La Conchita area, which we were doing structure defense within La Conchita, and we also were forced to shut down Highway 101. That was a significant activity early morning hours. Once the fire bumped Highway 101, due to the erratic winds, the fire started moving to the northwest with the terrain, and it actually moderated before it got to Highway 101 and 150, which we were very happy that the wind moderated. So going back around the fire towards the city of Ventura, we've been very successful in our actions there. We're actually looking at some potential repopulation of the city of Ventura tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. Moving around to the Highway 126 towards Santa Paula and Fillmore. Santa Paula, we've been very successful. Currently, right now, there is additional evacuations around Fillmore. We have been constructing line to the north towards Cesar Peak, and some of the fire activity is moderated, but we still have some very active fire up in the forest there. Also last night, the fire, as I'm working my way around, made a significant run at the city of Ojai. We were successful in the northwestern push towards the east side of Ojai, and then the fire burned around Ojai and jumped Highway 33, and that's where we're at right now. And it skirted around the town and backed into the town early morning hours this morning. With that, I'm going to introduce Fire Chief of Santa Barbara County, Eric Peterson, and they will discuss the fire operations in Santa Barbara County. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. We are very glad you're here. We want to answer your questions. We want to make sure you walk out of here with knowledge of what's happening. One of the really encouraging things about the way this fire is being run is how much they have utilized local knowledge. I was born and raised in this town in Santa Barbara. I've been here my whole life, and many of the people that are working on this fire have worked together for years and years and years, whether they work for the federal government, state, or local government. These are people that have known each other for a long time. They're not just for people from out of town, so they know the dirt, they know the terrain, they know what's going on around here. I'm going to introduce our operations chief on this fire, Matt Ferris, who has lived in Solvang or in Santa Barbara County for 40 years. He's not quite a native, but he's pretty close, and he's going to give you a quick operational briefing of where we are with this fire. Thanks for being here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. It's a large crowd, that's for sure. What I'm here is a contingency group for Santa Barbara County. The fire is still contained within objective lines that the incident has created at the beginning. So what we're here, in case it gets past that, sorry, speak up, get a little closer, try not to push this in here. So it's still holding at the 150 area, and we're here to put in a contingency line that goes above Carpinteria, and we're going to come up the Gubernador Canyon and move over to the Sutter Ridge and go up Sutter Ridge to East Camino Cielo and take it all the way out to Divide Peak and then move that out to Marietta Peak. The fire is still not into Santa Barbara County as of right now. It's moving on the north side of Divide Peak in Ventura County and both sides of Marietta Peak around that area if you're familiar with that. That's an update of what we're doing. We also have a structured group that will be implemented if the fire comes down below the Edison lines, and that'll be run by the Carp Battalion Chief locally. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brendan Ripley, and I'm a fire behavior analyst. And you may be asking yourself, what is a fire behavior analyst? Well, basically, I evaluate the fire environment, which is comprised of the vegetation or fuel that is out there, the topographical features, and then measure that with what is the most important component and has driven this fire is weather. Looking at fuels. Fuels, one of the ways in which we evaluate that is we look at fire history. Of the 20 largest fires here in California, 4 of them have been in this surrounding area. The Zaca, the Wheeler Fire, the 1932 Matilahaw Fire, and the 4th one, the Day Fire. We look at that because we look at how the fires have spread through the area and around the vegetation in this community and the other communities that they're affected. The vegetation right now is at a state of what we call a seasonal drought. It's at its driest point. The live fuel moistures that we measure and look at out there are done on a double monthly basis, twice a month. Currently, the critical value for live fuel moisture is 60%. It is ranging at 56% in the fuel beds in and around Ventura County and Carpinteria, making and promoting the active fire behavior that we've seen thus far. The other aspect is the topographical features. Because of the complex terrain, it makes accessibility very difficult for firefighters to get in and access the vegetation and the terrain, and really it doesn't provide a lot of footholds in which we can provide stopping points for the fire as it moves across the landscape. And finally, it's the weather. The weather is the driving force behind fire behavior. The firefighters have experienced the 4th day of red flag fire conditions. Those are coupled with very dry humidity, strong winds, and just a fire environment that is critically set to promote very, very active fire behavior. And we're looking for 3 more days. They've extended that red flag warning out to 8 o'clock on Sunday evening, and I hope that that's it. Every day it first started at Thursday, it then moved to Friday, and so on and so forth. So I'm hoping that the weather will cooperate in providing basically an opportunity for firefighters to get an upper hand on this fire. The wind component is our greatest nemesis. It is the greatest challenge that we have. When you have a fire that will throw spot fires, the wind will carry embers up to a mile out in front of the main body of the fire. It makes challenges for the firefighters very difficult, coupled with the very dry conditions that we have out there. So we do have an uphill battle over the next couple days. If the weather changes, if it helps to support those operations, we're hoping to get the upper hand and get control of this fire.
Hello, I'm Dr. Holly Baldwin. I'm the medical director for the Public Health Department, and I've been asked to update you on air quality. At this point in time, the rating for the air quality in Carpinteria is hazardous. Hazardous is the worst classification that air quality has. What that means to you all is that you should stay indoors if possible. If you have to go outdoors for any extended period of time, it's recommended that you wear a mask. We are distributing masks at the Albertsons here in Carpinteria, and if you have any questions, I'll be available in the back for a little while if you need to come by and ask me anything. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bill Dutton with the American Red Cross, and I'm here to tell you about shelters that are available for you should you need to evacuate. We certainly hope you will not have to, but if you do, they are available. We currently have 3 shelters open in Ventura County, and they are at Nordhoff High School, Oxnard Community College, and also at the Ventura Fairgrounds. In Santa Barbara County, there's currently a shelter open at UCSB, and we can have a capacity up to 470 people into that facility. We have plenty of room in that facility alone, plus we have 4 other locations available in Santa Barbara County to if the need arises. So I will be here after this meeting is over. If anyone has any questions, particularly dealing with shelters, I will be here. Thank you.
Good evening, Carpinterians. I'm Sheriff Bill Brown from Santa Barbara County, and you can certainly see why this community has as much spirit as it does with the people who are here tonight. We thank you for being here, and we want to give you some information tonight and assure you that everything is being done to address the safety concerns that you have. I'm here to talk to you about some of the evacuation areas, and in particular, we have, as of about 6 o'clock this evening, created 2 more mandatory evacuation zones. This map to my right here shows the Carpinteria front country. The city is down here at the bottom, and then on the top we have these various colored zones which go from left to right. We have made what we call Carp Zone 6 and 5 mandatory evacuation areas. These are probably the least populated zones in the Carp area, but they are in the path that the fire would likely come down if it were to come down from where its current position is up near Divide Peak. Now, you can't see on this map, but there is a salient, a western finger that comes out.
So we can see it. It's behind the podium. Bring it out. Thank you.
There is a western salient above what would be above this map where the fire is now. And if it were to proceed down to Carpinteria, it would come down, and it's an area of about 7 miles. And the reason that we've made these 2 areas mandatory evacuation areas is because last night the fire went 9 miles in 12 hours. And if the wind conditions are right, if the conditions are right, this fire could move very rapidly. And what we don't want to be stuck with is a situation where in the middle of the night, we have a rapidly spreading fire coming down into this populated area and an inability to get people who are in the more remote parts of this area out. If you live in any of these other areas, and by the way, the boundaries of this mandatory evacuation area would be Highway 150 to your right as you view this, Casitas Pass to your left, and 192 and everything above it would be what that evacuation area is. We also have a very small, right down here in this corner in the Rincon area, very small additional area that is mandatory evacuation. Everything else on this map is a warning area, a voluntary evacuation area. And what we're telling you is that you should be, if you live in that area, basically if you live anywhere where I assume everybody in this room lives, you should be prepared to leave your home at a moment's notice. You should have your irreplaceable documents, your jewelry, your family heirlooms, anything that can't be replaced should be packed up and ready to go. Your vehicle should be gassed up and ready to go. And you should have a plan on where you're going to go, whether that's a friend or a relative or to a hotel or whatnot in the area. But you need to be thinking about that now, not an hour or 2 before the fire potentially could be upon you. And the reason that we're more concerned about this than we may have been in the past is because of the fire activity that we've seen across the state, where these fires develop and burn very rapidly into heavily populated areas. And a lot of the tragic consequences of the Sonoma fire were as a result of the time that it occurred in the middle of the night and the inability to get people notified and to get them out of those areas. So I will be here, my staff will be here afterwards. If you have any specific questions, you can come up and look at this map